Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Sara Kujoh, who's going to get a return in her banner, which is the Raiden Shogun, and the Ayato banner coming up very soon. Now, a lot of people will be picking her up for the first time or getting some constellations and don't know what to do with them, so we're going to be talking about Sara today. So we're going to be talking about Sara in her Sara's Guide for Dummies. Now, we're going to be talking about her talents, her artifacts, her weapons, all of that stuff in this video in a super simple and concise guide for a lot of the people that don't care about the very big specifics, but rather how to play this character and how she works. So let's get right into it. So her first talent is going to be her normal attack talent. This talent does not matter whatsoever. It's nice to look at, doesn't do a lot of damage, but not anything that's important, so we're going to be skipping over that. Her next talent is going to be her skill, which is her buff. Now you can think of it as like a Bennett buff, but it lasts a lot less. Like, this is a very small timer, which is 6 seconds. So you will have 6 seconds on buff. It is a very big buff and will scale based on your base attack, which is of course leveling up her to 90 is going to get her as much attack as she possibly can, and having the highest base attack weapon will help her buff even more. For an example, we are at 1618 attack. With her buff, we are going to be getting a 2240 attack. See, that's a big buff, and this is based on her weapon. Now her other talent is going to be her ult. Now her ult does the same thing as her skill, which allows you to get buff. Now these cannot stack. This does a lot of damage, as you will see in the demo behind me, but this does a lot of damage, can extend the buff by the same timer, so it won't go like 6 plus 6 because that's the amount of time the attack bonus duration is, but it'll just be 6 and reset it back to 6 if you do the ult right after the buff, which is something that you really want to do, the buff then the ult. You'll still have the buff timer for your other teammates. Other than that, let's talk about her skill a little bit longer, because her skill is the main part of her kit. It is a little clunky. Like, you want a lot of constellations to be able to make this very good, but to make it very usable and make her a little bit smoother to play, you don't need that many constellations. Like I said, it is scaled off her base attack, and it gives the attack bonus of 82% at a level 11. This is constellations, of course, and the attack bonus is very short, so you want to make sure you get everything done that you need to get done very quick. Now, the one thing with Sara is that her skill is a little bit complicated. Her skill is going to have separate, I guess you could say, not animations, but parts of her kit locked behind constellations. When you use Sara's skill, please ignore the things that fall on the ground, as this is part of her constellation. We will talk about this very soon. But once you play with Sara and use a little backstep, which comes from her skill, she will get a really fast charge shot. Now this charge shot is going to be the buff. You're going to shoot it close to the ground, and the AoE that it shoots out is going to be the buff. Now that buff is going to severely, and I mean severely, impact your attack. This is going to be a very big attack from 1.6 to around 2.2k. It's a pretty big buff to your attack. Now it is going to feel a little bit clunky without constellations, as she will only be able to access the charge shot of this buff, so you will have to take the time to backstep, shoot it at the ground, wait for it to proc, and then it will give you the buff. Now with constellations, which we're going to be talking about in a second, these are going to severely make it so much better to play with Sara, a lot more smoother, and also buff it even more. But before we get into the constellations, let's get into the weapon. The Skyward Harp is your very best weapon because of the high base attack it has. It also gives crit rate and crit damage, which is really good. Another weapon that's really good is the elegy for the end. This gives energy recharge, has a high base attack, so you can't go anything wrong with that. It also provides buffs from its passive, and other than that, you can use Moyin's Moon to help with the her burst, making it hit a little bit harder. It has high base attack. Other than that, if you don't have any of these options, the Favonius Warbow does work as well, giving energy recharge and also providing energy for the team. So you kind of want to throw whatever weapon you have that has high base attack, or just go ahead and throw Favonius Warbow in order to generate some energy for the team if you do hit crit hits with her. Now, leaving the weapons. Now for Sara's artifacts, we are going to be running the Emblem of Severed Fate set. This is going to be helping her burst hit harder, give her some energy recharge to be able to burst more often, because remember, the burst is the buff itself. It can extend it by the same duration that it's on, so if it's losing a couple seconds and it gets reset back to 6 after you use her ult. Now for her, you're going to be running the standard DPS build if you want to do it for damage. You can make her burst more often with the ER Sands, but me personally, I just went ahead and went with attack. You're going to be going the crit rate, crit damage, ER substats. Of course, prioritizing ER, crit rate, crit damage over everything else, because nothing else really helps her that much, especially in the department of Elements of Mastery and all those other substats. you're going to be wanting purely crit rate, crit damage, ER. Now, stacking straight attack on her will not make her buff higher because it's just and only based on her base attack, which is the attack you get from leveling her up and the weapon. That's all it is. So do not plan on giving her attack percent circlet, attack percent goblet, and attack percent sands. That will not increase your buff. So please just rock ER sands or attack sands, whichever one you can get your hands on. And crit rate, crit damage, ER substat artifact. You do not have to build her heavily because she just needs a good weapon and her skill leveled up. So you do want to love her skill and then her ult, and then leave her normal attack alone because she will not be. All right, so now we're going to be talking about the constellations. For a constellation, it really does change Sara a whole bit because C2, C6 are going to be her major constellations that you'll be going for. Now we're going to be talking about her constellations and how a lot of these constellations will be helping her throughout your time playing with Sara, and it will make her feel a lot better to play with. So let's go ahead and start with C1. Her C1 basically allows the cooldown of her skill to be shortened whenever somebody gets the attack bonuses. Another thing is C2 is her milestone and one of her biggest constellations. This makes her a lot more smoother, a lot more easier to play, and have the rotations go a lot smoother. So instead of just having the charge attack buff that you throw down and it being, the fast charge attack and the buff on the ground, wait for it to pop and then you get your buff, you will use your backstep and it will instantly drop it. This makes it so much easier, so much faster to get all what you need to do done before it actually happens. So you do the backstep, you switch, and then you have all your stuff done. You start going crazy with your characters. So having that C2 is a big change in her kit. It makes her a lot more smoother, makes the rotations a lot faster. C2 is what you really want to strive for. It's one of her best constellations in my opinion. Trumps a lot of her constellations but C6, because C6 is a game breaker, which we'll be talking in a quick second. C3 is going to be making her ult hit harder. Her C4 is going to be making her ult pulse 2 more times. As you can see from the demo behind me, I do have her ult using, and it will be 4 at the start, but with C4 you will be getting 6, so 2 more instances of lightning spreading out will happen when you get C4. C5 is going to buff her skill, which is going to increase her buff ratio, and then C6 is going to be her #1, her best constellation, because of how OP it is, and it is increasing the crit damage of electro damage when by 60%. So when you use her skill that you have C2 by now, if you have C6, you instantly get 60 crit damage for a short amount of time. So pairing that up with Raiden Shogun, who will be on the banner as well, is going to be a big game changer. You can use other characters like Sino, other characters that have electro damage that they can use in a short instance. They will be able to use Sara's buff in a very good way. So C6 is going to be a really cool constellation. Makes your units hit way more harder. But other than that, C2 is what you really want to strive for, because it does make the backstep instantly give you the buff. And this makes it a lot more easier to play Sara, a lot more faster to play Sara. So just remember, her weapon needs to have high base attack. Other than that, her C2 is really good. Really makes her kit really whole, makes her feel complete. And then other than that, just level up the skill. You don't have to do the ult, but her ult does hit pretty hard. But the skill is the most important thing about her. It will help Raiden do so much more damage if you have her C6 as well. So that is going to be the Sara's Guide for Dummies. Hopefully that helped everyone out. See y'all on the next one. Good luck in y'all pools. Hope y'all become Raiden havers and Ayato havers. So see y'all on the next one, and peace.